All right. Well, while we're waiting, I'll welcome everyone. I appreciate you taking the time out of no doubt busy schedule to join us at our annual town hall. You may notice that this year we're doing things a little bit different. Normally we break these up by city. This year we decided to do joint town halls, so we have the Eden Prairie and Minnetonka virtual town hall together. Again, my name is James Makoviak. I'm an outreach coordinator with Southwest Light Rail. Couple preliminary comments. We will be recording this event. It'll be later posted on our webpage. And so if folks who missed it, who want to watch, they could be able to listen and watch the video later. The PowerPoint will also be available online on the website for those who want to review the PowerPoint and the photos that we show tonight. Also, there'll be ample time for questions and answers. If you feel like you want to ask a question throughout, please feel free to do that, but please use the chat box. One of my colleagues will be checking the chat box and then letting me know when there's a question, and then we can answer it as we go. Otherwise, it'll basically be a 20 to 30-minute PowerPoint presentation, and then we will have about 15 to 20 minutes at the end to complete any questions that people may have. All right. Next, I'll just kind of go over introductions for our team here tonight. Again, I'm James Makoviak, and joining me on our outreach team is a couple new coordinators we're very happy to have on board. We have Diana Nastos and Katie Kirk. And then we also have David Davies, who's been with the project as long as I have. So some of you may be familiar with David. And then we have our communications specialist, Trevor Roy, also on board. And we do have one subject matter expert here. That's Kevin Aul. Kevin is our traffic engineer. And we're hoping Haitham Ibrahim, who is our council representative or really construction lead on the west side of the project, will also be joining us. But so far I don't see him in the box. But either way, I think we've got the expertise here to be able to answer any questions that may or may not come up. We'll wait and see if Haitham joins us. All right, without further ado, I think then we can launch into the presentation. Again, just for the sake of time and being respectful of those of you who are joining at 6 o'clock. I know we have kind of a hard stop at 7, so we will proceed. Again, this is the Eden Prairie Minnetonka Virtual Town Hall Green Line Extension Update on April 19th, 2023. Let me get the thing going here. All right, today's topics. We'll be doing a general project update, maybe some slides that are familiar to you, and then we'll launch into a 2023 construction highlights. We'll focus primarily on Eden Prairie and Minnetonka, and then we will also do a briefer review of some of the work elsewhere in the corridor. We thought that might be interesting just to give people a broader perspective of the civil systems work that's going on elsewhere. And then we'll have just a general overview of the systems contract work, which has already begun, primarily in Eden Prairie and some in Minnetonka. And then we'll have a communications and outreach update. And then, as I indicated earlier, we'll have a question and answer period near the end. All right. Again, maybe a familiar slide to those of you who joined us before. We have the 16 LRT stations, 14.5 miles. You can see 29 new bridges, 7 existing bridges, pedestrian tunnels. We've got the 2 tunnels, 121 retaining walls, shared freight and rail corridor, and of course, quite a bit of trail reconstruction. And then we have the general sequencing slide we use just to, again, give people an overview of the process of construction. We start with the utilities several years ago. I think we had 2,000 or so private public utilities that we needed to be resolved. So there was a lot of preliminary work before we even began the civil construction above ground. And then the site prep, clearing buildings. I think we have about 157 different right-of-way obligations that we had to meet. and acquisitions rather. And then we have our structures, tracks, and station. That's really the system work. That's much of what you see. And for people who are from Eden Prairie or from Minnetonka, you see that quite a bit of that civil work has already been completed. All the bridges, the tunnel, the track has been laid all the way up through a portion of Minnetonka. So we've got quite a bit of work done there. And then, of course, you also may notice if you're down in that area, the catenary poles and some of the components of our electrical system. That's already started as well. This past week, in fact, the contractor for the systems, Aldrich Partridge, dropped 4 of the traction power substations. These are, I think 47 tons each, about 40 by 10 feet. And we had successful installation. So they're well underway as well. And then, of course, after that is done, when we are complete with civil and systems work throughout the corridor, we'll continue on with the testing component, which will take 6 to 9 months. For those people who have followed our project, we've had a little bit of a delay, some project cost increases in order to resolve some of the reasons or new components that we've added to that existing contract that had some things to do with those increases. We had to revise the civil construction contract with a civil contractor, and of course, that's related to the schedule and the procurement for the systems. So we had to revise the systems schedule as well based on earlier revisions with civil. And then we've still got to do the extend the supporting contract and complete all the total cost negotiations. And then we will have really a more revised and accurate project schedule and cost. We like this slide. It shows that a lot of the money, a lot of the employment for this project is staying here in Minnesota. You can see the numbers of people working on the project through February this year, number of people working who live in Minnesota, number of counties, the amount of money that has been billed by disadvantaged business enterprises. I think part of the upside of this slide is that from January 2023, we're exceeding our overall goal, 15% of DBE contracts. And then for those of you who may ride our trails, for the extensive trails here and wonderful trails in Minnesota, I know we've appreciated everyone's patience as we've had to close quite a bit of that or segments of those trails. And you can see from this map, the red circles are areas that are also remaining closed, and the green circles are portions that have remained open, and yellow are those that we intend on opening relatively soon and a temporary condition. So we are very cognizant of the trail community. We have a lot of bike riders even on our project, and it's something that we're paying close attention to, and we work as much as possible with the contractor to try to improve those timetables and to reopen those trails and that entire segment as soon as we're able to do that safely. All right, on to the 2023 construction highlights. I don't see anything in the chat box. Any questions? So I'll just continue on at the moment. All right, Eden Prairie. Those of you who live in Eden Prairie, it's very obvious that most of the civil work is done. Most of the big traffic impacts are completed. As you know, we've got a few still remaining for those of you who drive in the area. We have the final phase 2 construction at Southwest Station starting May 1st to complete the new entry turnaround areas. Phase 1 construction, of course, was the new temporary waiting area, the new bus loop turnaround, and also the addition to the parking ramp. The relocation of Southwest Transit is supposed to happen very soon. We expect it to happen as early as May 1st, when we will help Southwest Transit relocate to the new loop and also to the new waiting area. They will take ownership of that and begin operating out of there. And then we'll use that as the opportunity to take down the temporary station we put up a couple of years ago for them and resume construction. There will be some piling for those of you who are down there. Some 437 piles, I think, we still need to put in to complete that entry and turnaround area. And then, of course, the systems contractor is completing foundations, traction-powered substations, signal houses, poles, arms, and wiring throughout the Eden Prairie segments. And the expectation is that most of the systems and civil work is expected to be completed in the Eden Prairie segment by the end of this year. And again, we have fewer traffic impacts. The major impact this year is eastbound Highway 212 off-ramp to Prairie Center Drive. And those of you who travel in that area know we closed that a couple weeks ago. It'll be closed for another 10 weeks or so. And then, of course, the intersection of West 70th Street, Shady Oak Road is closed for 4 weeks to complete utility and road work. So far fewer. Still, we understand the disturbance that these traffic impacts create, but far fewer than in the past. And then we'll be winding those up this year. That's the good news. Okay, just a general map. I won't go into any detail. For those of you who want to download this, this is just a quick synopsis of, some of the construction activities and some of the closures that I mentioned earlier there. You can see them listed and where they are in Eden Prairie. All right, so now the best part, some of the photos of the significant progress we've made, down in Eden Prairie with civil construction. You can see in the distance there, the Southwest Station waiting area and the new bus loop. Just to your right, you can see the parking ramp. We're adding, I think, some 430 additional parking spaces. There'll be around 1,300 total now. And you'll be able to drive through from one end of the parking ramp, the older ramp, to the new section, and then exit and enter and exit right through the parking lot. All right, and also down below, you can see we've got the tracks installed there, and this is the terminus. This is the last station of the Southwest Light Rail extension. The inside of the waiting area, it's a very, I think, a somewhat sophisticated interior here. Get the chairs in, and again, this was a couple weeks ago, and they're starting to move in operations now from the temporary waiting area. Then, of course, taken from the parking garage, you can see the changing landscape in the last 5 years, right? We've had dramatic change down at Southwest Station. You've got the development of and opening of Elevate, which is running around 97% occupancy. So doing very well. They're on the right-hand side off to the picture. You can see there's a new set of shops there that was put up about 4 years ago. And then in the distance, you can see the iconic water tower. And you can also see the Prairie Center Drive Bridge, the first bridge leaving Southwest Station. And then coming around the turn of that bridge, we see Town Center Station, which is nearly complete as well. We have the new road on the right. You call it the Town Center Extension. Now moving beyond Eden Prairie, we didn't want to add a photo of every station, but as we continue down Flying Cloud Drive, right, we run along Highway 212. Those of you who know the corridor, and we get a 9-mile bridge, and then we enter the Golden Triangle area. We cross West 70th, and then we have our Golden Triangle Station in the distance there. You can see the Optum building just south of Highway 62. And on the right, for those of you who know the area, you can see Shop HQ. It's that yellow bar and yellow and black building there on the far right. So that station, like all the stations, the progress is going along quite well. And then you can see, again, the entry from the station to the Shady Oak Highway 212 bridge. Again, a bridge that starts on the east side of Highway 212. We cross Valley View Road, Shady Oak Road, Flying Cloud, Shady Oak. And we cross then to the west side of Highway 212. We run north. And then when we get to 62, we take a hard, you can see right on that corner, just below, just south of 62, we shameless plug for one of our public tours there. You can see a couple of our tour participants there. We had a nice tour. We were able to walk up alongside of the bridge and onto the bridge, something we will be offering again this year and we talk about later on. But that's just a nice view looking south toward Eden Prairie along our Shady Oak Bridge. And then, of course, if those folks in the picture were to turn around, and you'd be looking at 62, and just before 62, we take a hard westerly turn and we enter City West Station area, again, adjacent to the Optum campus. And then from City West Station, you continue on and we go under the tunnel created that goes under Highway 62 into Minnetonka. So that's sort of the broad overview of 2023 construction in Eden Prairie. We'll continue on to Minnetonka unless anybody has any questions. All right. If not, we'll continue on to Minnetonka. 2023 highlights, again, civil and systems work. We've got road work and landscaping completed in Opus Park this year. And we've got some trails impacted, as people who are in that area know, by our construction, as we do in most cities. And the crews continue to work on the longest bridge in our corridor, the Minnetonka-Hopkins Bridge. And then again, similar to what's going on in Eden Prairie, we have 16 segments, construction segments, right, in our 14.5-mile alignment, just to break up and organize the construction. several of those segments have been turned over by the civil contractor in Eden Prairie, and the same thing is true here in Minnetonka. And as they do, the systems contractor then picks up the obligations of that corridor, and they begin systems work. So they will they'll complete the foundations and install traction power substations, the 62 tunnel and signal houses, which if you drive by that area is under construction. And again, catenary poles, arms, wiring up to Smetana Road this year. And again, similarly to Eden Prairie, I would say most civil systems work is expected to be completed through Smetana Road by the end of this year. That's the hope. And then some traffic impacts. For those of you who drive through Opus Park, you know that we have East Brent Road, which is all torn up, a portion of it by the East Brent Station apartments, and that's going to be closed for another 10 weeks or so to complete road and trail construction. We also have a single lane closure on Yellow Circle Drive near the LRT tunnel, and that's where the systems contractor is working on the foundations for their tunnel house. And then we'll have a little bit of a closure for a couple of weeks on Red Circle Drive. We put a new extension in, as people are familiar with Opus Park and the reconfiguration of that park. We put in a brief extension between yellow to red to go around the circle to exit the park, and we're going to be closing that briefly. We needed to complete some fence and safety measures we didn't get to late last year. But again, similarly to Eden Prairie, once all that is wrapped up, we will be out of out of the way of traffic, out of the way of the residents in those areas. And again, same thing, here's the construction map. And if you choose to look at that, you can have a closer look at that online later, and you can see the closures in red, brief descriptions, and arrows, directional arrows showing you where those closures and where that work is taking place. And moving on from Minnetonka, we got some photos. Again, another shameless plug for our public tours. Public tours are just a great opportunity for people who are interested to get up close and personal with the project construction, in a way you won't be able to once revenue operations start, the trains start moving back and forth. This is the Highway 62 Opus entrance or exit, depending which way you look at it. That's our tunnel, and we get to walk through that. We'll do that again this year. And when you come out of that tunnel in the far distance of that photograph, and here you continue going kind of a northeasterly, and you enter, you see our Opus Station. And if you continue just past Opus Station, in the distance, you can see the Bren Station development that opened a couple of years ago. You can see some of the large retaining walls on the other side of that. A lot of development in Opus. There are about 5 different developments, including this Bren Road Station and the adjacent apartment complex. You can see also to the left, and adding upwards of around 2,000 new units to that area within a half-mile walking distance to our station. And then continuing our way up the alignment, we go north. Once we get beyond that wall that I just showed you a photo of, we go north towards Smetana Road, and when we get to Smetana Road, you can see we had a lot of construction going on in that area the last 3 years. You can see on the upper left, you can see the Smetana Bridge, and just to the right of that is the Felto Bridge. Those are 2 new land bridges. And then, of course, on the photo on the right, you can see, looking south from Smetana Road, you can see the noise protection wall in the foreground there. And you can see the retaining walls coming out from Opus Park, where we then eventually continue to the right of that photograph, or to the left near Felto Bridge in the upper right. And we continue then out to Minnetonka-Hopkins Bridge, here seen in these photos, which is the longest bridge in the corridor. You can see in the far distance of the photo on the left, you can see that it kind of really rises. And the reason it's rising that high is to get over the railroad that runs underneath it. And then it lands on the other side into Hopkins. All right, we will stop there and pause. That's the end of the focus on Eden Prairie and Minnetonka. If anybody has any specific questions about that, please feel free to ask us now. Otherwise, we'll just continue with a briefer overview of the rest of the corridor.
I don't see anything in the chat.
All right, thanks, Diane. All right, we'll continue on. The construction activities again, 2023. This is the Hopkins Shady Oak Station to Blake Road Station. And again, you can see the same configuration of information. We've got closures, we've got work that's going on. You can see the road closures, there's lane closures in orange as we continue now along the rail corridor. You know, the first 4.5 miles or so of the corridor from Southwest Station to the Shady Oak Station is all new right away. It's going to be a beautiful trip. I'd like to point that out when it's all done. For those of you who maybe have driven around or by some of those structures already, you can see that most of that is elevated. And then we have just brief periods on grade, and it takes you into, you know, a part of Eden Prairie, Minnetonka that you don't get to see because of the alignment that was chosen. But as we continue on into Hopkins, throughout St. Louis Park, elsewhere into Minneapolis, to Target Field, we're generally following along the rail corridor, and we've got some beautiful bridges there as well. So if you'd like more information, please consult this slide a little bit later. And again, we like to also remind people here that all this information generally is posted weekly in our construction update that's posted online on our webpage. Talk a little bit more about that later, but if anybody has any questions about upcoming closure, it's always probably the surest thing to consult in order to find out what we're doing or if that's going to affect your commute. Again, one of our most probably one of the feature bridge in the project here is the Excelsior Boulevard LTR bridge. You can see that's not really on piers, it's on some kind of foundation, and it's built with this form traveler system where they start from the foundations and build out, and then they meet the different sides in the middle. You can see it has quite a swale on the bottom right-hand side. You can see that photograph. But we had to build that to not only go over Excelsior Drive, but to go to the other side of the rail corridor and to allow the train to pass through. And as you continue eastward, you can see we're looking south here from roughly, if you know Pizza Luce, we're looking from Blake Road, looking kind of southwest. You can see the Blake Road station. In the distance, you can see some of the significant development going on there. That's about an 850 unit development going on in that whole complex when it's done. And just behind you, if you're standing, looking in this direction from Blake Road, there's another 800 plus units going up in Hopkins, close to the station. Now we move to St. Louis Park. Again, I won't be redundant. You can consult that map for that more information if you're interested online. And then, of course, as we continue from Blake, we see Louisiana Station. There's a lot of work there. We had to complete for the railroad as well. There's a railroad bridge in the distance there, but you can see Louisiana Station, some fairly large retaining walls. And there'll be some nice connections at this station for the biking community. We've got a nice ped biking path that runs under this wall from the north side to the south side around Oxford. And then continuing on to Wooddale Avenue, you can see in the distance Via Sol, another new development that will start leasing in the future. But that's the Wooddale station, and just to your right would be 36th Street. And again, just a summary then of one of two slides upcoming. There's a lot more work, as now we're heading west. You can see a lot of the work is completed already. The civil work on the western side, we've got quite a bit still to do as we move eastward. You can see there's quite a few more bubbles here in the first half of Minneapolis. Lake Street to 21st Street Station. And you can see the West Lake Street Station in the distance. You see the Lake Street Bridge, and eventually there'll be a vertical circulator, an elevator taking you from that station, if you like, with a bus connection on that bridge. And just if you continue to the left side, you continue further on, you can see the Secant Towers. And then we come to our Kenilworth Tunnel, and where you can see just a general overview of the Secant wall construction, which is coming to an end, or may have been an end. If anybody has any questions about that, we've got our subject matter expert. Looks like Hytham has joined us. We also have David Davies, who has an extensive knowledge of that area, having been the Minneapolis coordinator for many years. And then some of you might have heard about the impediment investigation while we were putting the Secant wall. We were drilling. We do thousands of borings during the design phase, right, in order to ascertain the soil and collect information for environmental process. But in this particular instance, didn't quite detect this, what we call the impediment, and it turned out to be really nothing. It was a corner of a piece of the foundation to that nearby structure. And I think the photo on the bottom right shows the quarter that we cut off. So it didn't have any impact. We were able to complete that secant wall and continue on with that tunnel construction. Here's a nice view of the tunnel from down in the tunnel. That's again, the Kenilworth LRT tunnel. A very complex tunnel. If anybody would like any more detailed information and what makes up that tunnel and the size of the slab and the depth of it, I'm sure David could provide that for you if you have that question at the end. And then the Cedar Lake Channel pedestrian bridge. We continue. I think it's our third bridge there. There was a rail bridge, the light rail bridge, and now the pedestrian bridge. And along with that, our part of our environmental process is that we have to complete like 16. We have to fulfill the FTA's requirements, looking at 16 different definitions of the environment, one of which is historic properties. This is an historic wall that had to be rebuilt according to their scale. So that's nearly complete, or it looks like it is complete, and that was completed recently. Continue on to the second half of our construction activities in 2023, the Minneapolis Bryn Mawr Station to Royalston. Bryn Mawr Station, in the distance, you could see what will eventually be that PED bridge, taking people from the parking lot right below 394 over that bridge down to the station. There'll be lots of good trail connections there as well. Bassett Creek Valley Station. And that complex Glenwood Avenue Roadway Bridge, where we have the new portion of the Glenwood Avenue Bridge being built, as well as continuing on grade crossing at over the new LRT bridge. So that's quite a complex enterprise. If anybody's ever been out there to see that on a tour or just out of interest, you can see that construction is very interesting. And then, of course, the last photo, you can see the final turn of that 14.5 miles since starting at Southwest Station. We have that 5th Avenue, 7th Street LRT bridge, where you can see connect to Target Station. You can see Haywood, our Metro Transit facility in the distance there. All right, that's the end of our presentation for our 2023 update. The civil side of things, we'll move on to the systems construction. Just a couple quick slides here. It's kind of interesting. We have sort of on-track machinery that's custom made to stay on the track. I think the highlight here, or the takeaway here, is that unlike civil construction, there's very little sort of public disturbance. We don't impact the roads as much unless there's a grade crossing, but generally most of systems work takes place on the corridor, on the track. You can see one of the installation of one of our OCS pole arms assembly. We've got some arms that go on after the poles have been put in. And then we have a big warehouse up in Golden Valley where our traction power substations are delivered. We also have signal houses, crossing arms, all sorts of things that they're then delivered down to the sites. Last week, as indicated, we installed 4 traction power substations. You can see the one on the left is the first substation installed. You can see in the bottom left, you can see a little bit of the foundation and those very tiny people down there to give you some scale. And the crane lifted that 47-ton station over and landed on top of that foundation. And then the second photo here to the right is our town center station traction power substation. There's about 19 of these along the corridor, and they're about 3/4 of a mile apart. And they provide the AC to DC connection to power the system. Again, our technology drive crossing signal that was delivered to the local station, our warehouse up in Golden Valley. All right, finally, communications and outreach update. Again, photos, so you more familiarize yourself with our 2 new coordinators. It's Diane on the left and Katie on the right. And you can see their responsibilities as they continue to get up to speed and become more familiar with the project. It's like drinking from a fire hose, I think. We have a lot of information to digest, but they're doing a superb job, and we're really super happy to have them on board. And again, you see we have our town halls. Those are the joint town halls. You see the first one on the left today at Eden Prairie and Minnetonka. And then next Wednesday, same time, Hopkins St. Louis Park. And then we'll also have the Minneapolis happening simultaneously. And if anybody's had any trouble with the links, please do let us know. We want to make sure everybody who wants to attend can attend. And then, of course, we'll continue our tours. I kind of gave those plugs earlier on. We enjoy those tours. It's a great opportunity for people who are interested to get out on the corridor and, again, see some of the construction up close. As we have in the last 2 years, we'll do 3 rounds. We'll do one May, July, and September, one tour per city per round. And we can generally accommodate between 15 and 20 people. We just also like people to know that if you have a group and you would like to arrange a tour, we're not limited to these public tours. We're more than happy to try to arrange a tour of some part of the alignment that you might be interested in. All right, we get quite a few, as you can imagine, quite a few emails, public emails, a lot of work to do working with the civil and the system side of things. A lot of people impacted, a lot of people have questions. In 2022, we have about 165 calls and emails. General trend, we get a few fewer every year as systems, particularly on the west, is winding up. This is our hotline. Hopefully, if you don't have that number, you can find it online, and you can call for any reason. It doesn't have to necessarily be because there's something going on that you're reporting. If you have any general question, we try to get back to you within 24 to 48 hours. And then as you know, we put this weekly construction update out during the spring and summer and fall construction season. We kind of roll off to about once every 2 weeks due to the lack of work in the winter, but we're now up to that once a week construction update. In 2022, you can see the subscriber rate has risen significantly from when we started this update in 2019. We're about 18,237 last year, and probably more this year. It continues to rise. It's a very good resource for people who just need to keep up to date on where we are, what construction is going on, and where, particularly if they've got to travel, close to our corridor and they have some traffic concerns. All right, that is the end of the formal presentation. And if we'll just leave a few minutes here, as much time as you need. We've taken about 32 minutes up. If we've got another 15, 20 minutes at least, if people have any questions, this is the time to ask.
Hi, James. It's Nancy Litwin with Eden Prairie Center Shopping Mall. Can you hear me?
Thanks, Nancy. Yeah, I can. Thanks, Nancy.
Yeah, I just wondered if you could update us on the excess expense and what the current status is on how that might be paid.
David, would you like to take that question? Or Trevor? I don't know if you can hear me. David.
Sorry, can you say that one again?
Yep. Thanks, Nancy. Can you repeat that? And just for future questions, I really appreciate, Nancy, the fact that you introduced yourself, let people know where you're from. Appreciate it. If anybody else has any questions, just let us know your name and before you ask your question. Thanks, David. So Nancy, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, my question is regarding the project being over budget and the excess expense. Wondering if you can provide a status update to the group of the latest proposal in terms of how that excess will be paid.
Sure. I would just say that it's pretty, it's a work in progress. We were able to come up with some of that funding last year with our county partners, and we continue to work through that process with our county partners. I don't have any firm updates to say that we've, closed that funding gap right now, but you will certainly hear about that later this year as we progress with the project.
Thanks, David. Thanks, Nancy. Anybody else? No more questions? All right. Well, again, I just want to thank everybody for coming. And also, again, remind you that if you have any friends or any acquaintances who would like to review this meeting, kind of watch the PowerPoint or even download a copy of the PowerPoint, that'll all be available online. I believe, Trevor's going to post that either today or tomorrow. So look for that. And then also look for our other town hall meetings if you're interested in the St. Louis Hopkins area or Minneapolis. All right. Other than that, again, thanks everybody. Thanks for all my colleagues for joining me after a long day, and especially for those of you from the public who've taken the time to follow us and support us and show up and join us here tonight. Thanks very much. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.